Well, one thing I'll let you know, Yvonne, is that the first hurdle is already overcome because someone's here. It's always good to look out and, you know, and I mean, I was feeling pretty good about it because I knew I'd have at least 2 other authors to talk to, and that's always good. I'm Cinda Williams Chima. I have actually two different fantasy series out. The first one is the Air Chronicles. It's contemporary fantasy set in Ohio, and I brought a little prop, you know, for the people that live in New York. This is Ohio. Now, I found that after my first series was published, many people were already familiar with Ohio, but not so much the people on the coast. So I brought that along. Now, my new series is high fantasy. So it's set in the 7 realms, it's actually a world that I created for an adult high fantasy series that I never finished. I wrote the Warrior Heir and the Wizard Heir and was shopping those, but I decided to stop because I figured I could have the world's longest unpublished fantasy series, and started working on the Starmarked Border, which was a fantasy series for adults. And then, fortunately, the Warrior Heir sold, and then the Wizard Heir sold, and when that happened, I wrote the Dragon Heir. And when I finished with that, I thought, what would I like to write next? And I really wanted to write more books for teens because they are the most passionate readers in the world. I mean, for good or bad, I mean, I get the emails, you know, somebody's unhappy with what I did. I had one boy, I killed off a character in Dragon Heir, and I got an email from a boy, it was a single line, epic fail. So, they don't hesitate. Were you tired when you wrote that last book? Because, you know, it just kind of seems to drag. So I thought, what can I do? And I had this whole world that I had created already for the Starmarked Border. I had characters, I had a conflict, I had an extremely lame map that I had drawn. I can't tell you how much I struggled over this map. I copied it 3 times. So I thought, you know, I could do something with this. I've done so much work on this already. So I decided to take 2 of the characters back to when they were teenagers, and that was Han Alistair and Reza and Mariana. And Han Alistair is a street gang leader. Sort of West Side Story meets Aragon. You know, he's actually very good at what he does. He's a good thief. He's a talented leader, but he's just made a decision to leave the life because he knows that street lords really don't generally live into their 20s. And then the other main character is Reza Anna Mariana, and she is the heir to the throne of the Thals because it's a queendom. So she is mixed blood. Her father is clan, and her mother is the Flatland Queen, and so she's just spent a couple years with her father's family as the Demon King opens, and she's just back at court, and she's really struggling with all the constraints of court life. She would really like to be like her ancestor, Queen Hamalia, who killed the Demon King and saved the world. So, after that series fortunately sold to Hyperion, they hired a map maker to make a new map. And so, that's the world that it takes place in. Now, should I go ahead and read something, or should we pass it on? Okay. Do you want something romantic, or do you want conflict? Okay. All right. I have these little tags in here: romantic and conflict. This actually stems from the fact that I did a joint signing once with Alison Noel. I don't know if you know who she is, but she writes paranormal romance, extremely popular. And so I was in a Barnes & Noble absolutely packed with Alison Noel fans. And so, of course, I read my usual street fight scene. And if I'd really been thinking about it, I would have read the romance scene. So, okay, so what's happening in this book? Han and Reza met once in The Demon King. Reza came down to Rag Market, the slum where Han hangs out, and their paths cross. And now they've met again for the first time at Odin's Fort. They've traveled to a different country to go to school, and they've gone up in Han's secret lair in the library, and it's the solstice, so there's going to be fireworks. So they've been up there talking. Han has just persuaded Reza to tutor him, to teach him how to pass in the blue blood world, because Reza's a blue blood, even though he doesn't actually know who she really is. So they're having this discussion, and the fireworks begin. A boom rattled the windows. Light poured through the glass, turning the gloomy room bright as midday. "The fireworks," Reza said. "We'd better go down." She gestured at the window, too high to reach. "Do we go back the same way?" "Let's go back up," he said. I have an idea for where we can watch the show." Han snatched up Reza's cloak and held it while she slid into it, an awkward attempt at gallantry. Standing behind her, he gripped her around the waist and lifted her high so she could reach the window. Pulling herself up, she slithered through. He leaped, gripped the stone sill, and swung easily through the opening. "This way," he said. He led her around the base of the bell tower to the far side, where the roof slanted down to a joining with one of the wings. He spread his cloak over the rough tiles. Bracing his feet against the flashing, Han leaned back onto the slanted roof so he was lying at a slight angle, looking up at the sky. He patted the spot next to him. "Here." Reza lay down beside him. Boom! The shell exploded nearly over their heads, showering streamers of colored sparks over the greens. "It's spectacular," Reza said, turning her head to grin at Han. "I thought this would work," Han said, looking pleased with himself. The missiles rippled into the air, glittering red, purple, green, silver, and gold. Great chariots charged across the sky, pulling the sun behind them. Dragons roared overhead, breathing flame, drawing lusty cheers from the crowds down below. Fireworks were mostly clan-made, and some said there was magic built in. "Ooh," the crowd said in unison. "Ah." Reza floated on a sea of homesickness. Queen Mariana presided over solstice fireworks in Fell's March, the shells exploding over Honolulu and Lissa and all the other mountains. They go to temple by candlelight and thank the lady for the sun's return. "May the sun come again, Mother," she thought, and meant it. "What did you like best about solstice at home?" she asked, looking over at Han. "The food," he said without hesitation. "What kind of food?" Reza asked, recalling the groaning tables in the palace. "Enough to fill you up," he said simply. Pillowing his head on one arm, he reached down and took her hand. "You're a bold one," she thought, but didn't pull away. "Before the war got bad," he continued, "there was always plenty of food around at solstice. The temples had extras, and some of the rich houses gave out leftovers from their feast days. Since the war, there hasn't been plenty, but still more than usual anyway. The markets had toys and candy, fried honey cakes, and spun glass stars you never saw any other time of year. My sister Mary loved those honey cakes and sugar suns. I could have snabbled a whole bakery cart, and she'd still want more. She'd get powdered sugar all over her face." He sighed and fell silent, lost in his own thoughts. "I miss the snow," Reza said, wiping cold mist off her face with the sleeve of her cloak. "It made the city look like a fairyland. Her family would ride through the streets in a horse-drawn sleigh, wrapped snug in furs, bells jingling. And the river didn't stink as bad once it was frozen over," Han said. She laughed. "You're right. Even in their different lives, they'd shared the stinking river. We'd sneak out at night and slide down Quarry Street Hill on dustbin lids till the Blue Jackets chased us off," he went on. "Sometimes Blue Bloods came down the way in big sleighs. We'd catch a ride standing on the runners and back until the footmen clubbed us off." Reza's breath caught. "They clubbed you?" "Well," he looked sideways at her, "if you were any good, they'd miss." A succession of quick explosions drew their attention skyward. It was the climax of the show, a symphony of sound and light. Then it was over, leaving brilliant images on the insides of Reza's eyelids and ringing in her ears. She could feel Han shifting position on the roof beside her, moving closer. She just lay there, unwilling to move, wishing she could just stay up there, avoiding the turmoil of her life below. finally she opened her eyes to find him propped up on his elbow again, looking down at her, indecision in his eyes. Looking at her lips, to be specific. He wants to kiss me, she realized, but he's thinking about what happened earlier with Tarrant, and he doesn't want to press it. Thank you, she said, pushing upright, and the moment passed. My solstice eve turned out better than I'd hoped, but I better get back. He stood and helped her up, steadying her on the slippery tiles. I'll walk you back and make sure you get in all right. Before tonight, she would have refused the offer. Despite Micah's presence, Odensport had seemed safe, sequestered from the real world. She'd been wrong. They walked back across the still-crowded bridge, lost in their own thoughts. All the way back, she second-guessed her decision to tutor Hon Alister. Was it frustration over Eamon that had made her say yes? A desire to do something she knew he wouldn't approve of? First, the letter to Queen Mariana, and now this. Wouldn't it be better to keep her distance from anyone attached to the Fells? Wouldn't it be better to keep her distance from someone who made her heart race and her tongue tangle up? From someone who made her want to forget the rules? Was there anyone in all of the 7 realms who had more counts against him? Anyone who would be less acceptable to every faction in the Fells than Hon Alister? Well, it wasn't like she meant to marry him. At the edge of Wayne House Quad, she paused. I'm all right now, she said, pausing. My dormitory is right over there. Worried Corporal Byrne will see us, Hon said, tilting his head toward Grindel, which was exactly what she was worried about. Why would you think I'd be worried about that? She snapped. Just a guess. You seem to think that there's some kind of thing between us, she said. I don't know what Kat told you, but whatever it isn't true. Well, he said, rubbing his chin, there's definitely a thing. I'm just not sure what kind of thing it is. She huffed out a breath to show him what she thought of that. Thank you, Newling Alister, for the tea and the fireworks, she said, inclining her head. I had a wonderful time. Now, if you will excuse me. She strode across the quad toward Grindel, head held high. When she was nearly there, he called after her in a carrying voice. See you tomorrow night, Newling Morley. She swung around. What? Tomorrow is Tuesday, he said, bowing at the waist. Then he turned and disappeared into the night. Graces stood looking after him, a dozen sarcastic responses crowding forward and then dying on her lips.